I mentioned that last time. Then I'll add this little panel over here. It's the outside the ankle. Now this is counter. It's curved this way here and that way there. Here between those two marks, I'm going to put my finger there, right between those marks, and I'm going to put my fingers on this toe right here. And when I stretch that out there, see where that mark's right there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of foam, a straight edge, a straight from just a little bit below that, just a little bit below this, so that that foam will have some support. Alright, so I've got that beacon foam tack. I've got that 9mm shoe ridge. It's just beacon foam tacked in here on the foot. Up here I'm leaving it loose for now. This isn't glued in. This has to blend in perfectly, and to do that, I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and bevel it around so that that'll sit flat on this edge. Yeah, it'll sit. Alright, so I put glue on the ankle, put glue down the ridge, I put glue around the bevel on this upper shin part, and then I kind of came down and mated it to this part. Then you have to take it off and you have to rub the contact cement so it's going to stick. And then, you know, with the toes right here, keep that in mind, and you're just short here on that one. And then you lay it on there, you get down in here, and I had to take something long like this, better 1/4 inch rod to be better, but I slip it down the toe, and I kind of made sure that it could get to this ankle where this piece here would touch my ankle down there, because I glued that up, so it's glued there really well. And when you get to this side and you wrap that down and it's curving out, then you hold it in with your thumb and take your X-Acto knife once you think you've got it in position, and you cut along that edge, and then it'll snap down in there just like that. Now the next thing I'll do is turn him over, and I'm going to glue this to the shoe, to the sole. Significant about these is there's no vertical fin. These are drag brakes, and so there's no rudder exactly to control. It's kind of like a flying wing more or less, but nonetheless you don't need a vertical fin because of these drag brakes. Really excited about this. Got that shoe on real well. Then I'll do this other shoe after I cut another ridge piece for here. Then we'll wrap the other shoe on, and then we'll have lower half of our man is coming together. Contact cement on a piece of foam, and I slid it between the two soles and this outer skin. And right here you can see that I'm starting to shave off this extra. You just have to leave extra because you don't know exactly how it's going to fit, because every one of these is a little bit unique. So I'm shaving this off, and I'm shaving this off. So just like I did on the heel here, to show you that when you wrap that and you see some extra, that's normal. So I've got that extra shaved off. I'm going to have to flip him over to finish that toe. I just can't see what's going on there very well. This piece, the seams right here, and this piece, I needed to tack those together on this reverse curve here. So I just put some glue in there, put some glue in here, and I put some glue on the back of this, and I slipped it up in there, but then I saw that I needed to make a little notch here. So I took it out and I slipped it back in there, and I turned it so that the skin side is away from me. Shin guard came down, and I can see the shadow, and I'm going to relieve some of that from this side, because see the front side I've got this beautiful looking boot, but I need a little more support. See, it's a little soft there. So I'm going to remove some of this, and then I'm going to lay a piece of 6mm in there. I carved it and sanded it away. This plate did go clear over, and this is the shin guard. I just carved it to where all that's left is the glue joint, and then I took some 60 grit sandpaper and I kind of sanded it so it's just kind of like that. And then I'll also glue a little strip of 6mm in the inside of the shin guard there too. Obviously I put a patch here from that, where the outer to the inner. I put a patch here, I already covered that. There it is. And then I also put a patch. Even though there's no seam, I put a patch on the other side of this foot here. You can see it through there. Just to kind of, that's pretty thin foam. Just to give this a little more stiffness. On this other foot, I added this foot ridge. My other shoe that sits there, it's that shape. That's the shape in the PDF. And so I rounded it this way. Then I'm going to round it this way, working it on the edge of the refrigerator with 2 hands. And then I was working it on the edge of this sharp cabinet I've got, like this, getting it to be rounder. Then for this reverse curve, I've got a little bit of a reverse curve here. I'll flip it over. Here I'm filming and doing it with 1 hand, so you can definitely do it with 2 hands without. Alright, real quick. I made a paper template around this, and then I'm going to flip it over and put it around this one so I get it in about the right position for the foot cover. Alright, then after I took that template that I showed you, then I put some little marks around here where I want this next cover to fit. Shoe this arch here. You can put it over like a broomstick and then take a plastic bag and rub up and down it. It creates heat, and you can kind of shape it and form it and just get a nice, good, pretty radius over that. Alright, so that worked really well. The pattern that I had, and I'll put this on the plans, for this foot to go around, looks really nice and tight. Now this one, I put the pattern on here, just mirrored over, and I put little check marks with the pin, and I just, when I glued that up where that was, and I glued this up, and after I beveled it, of course. So I just set it on there, and I just squeezed it in until it matched the marks. It worked just well, just awesome. And then here I just tucked that in, and once I got that tucked in real nice, then I'll just give that a little slot, and I'll tie that in. Then I'll flip it over and glue this to the sole. So I just put a 2mm rod. I just bound it to this 2mm rod up here, right at the tip. Try to do flush, and the same thing here. I just put it right in here. Then I'm gonna snip this off right here. All right, so I'm gonna put a sheet right in here. I kind of lined out where I'm gonna put it on the arm. So I get a little extra there, an inch extra here, but this one I'm gonna cut that one from that there to over here where the edge of this is, and I'll match it up, make sure everything still looks good. It always helps if the previous sheet was cut straight, which it wasn't, so I had to go in and trim that straight. But nonetheless, so this is the next sheet. It's going to fit in there. I've got a little extra here, a little extra here, a little extra there, but this is flush up against that seam, and this is pre-curved. Okay, so it's glued on. Now I'm just going to trim there, leave this a 1/2 inch long, make sure that wraps good, and I'm probably going to do is make another one of these ribs and stick it under here so that it has some support. If you're going to just do the flexible corner or leave it off like I am, don't forget to add this. Or pretty good. Got the left side and right side, or vice versa, and then I'll put in this piece. You know, when you made it up there, before you glue it on, don't forget to round those on. This piece joined that piece. There's just a little seam that I sanded, and it needs a little reinforcement. So on this side, you can see that I put a little patch in there, and there. And this is the patch seam where the other sheet will match. See the little patch seam there, where it'll just sit on that and wrap around. Okay, then I can, I'll do that to the other side as well. Then we'll put in these 2 missing pieces here. All right, so now I'm coming along really well. I'm just going to finish up this little front area before I do these. So I put the under tabs so I have something to glue to. Fit over that, and it wraps back to there like that. Alright, so here we are, and that little section right here that the seam was right here, that I glued that on and wrapped it down and trimmed and beveled it, and I glued this to the 2mm carbon fiber rod. So then I put hot glue, and then you put blue tape and wrap it to hold it while that glue's drying, and then you don't burn your fingers either. Then, since that's all beveled, and this is ready for to be glued onto, then I'll grab another piece of foam and get it mated on there. Edge fitted, I just kind of kept making little cuts and lines until I put a little starting mark right down there, and when that goes all the way up, and that seam just matches perfectly. So I work with that for a few minutes, and then I kind of cut this a little bit big there, and when this wraps down here, I cut that a little big there, and I pre-curved it, glued on here, and then I just kind of wrapped that over just to hold it up against the ribs. Straight edge like this, and I'll slip a knife all along this. And before I sand that down, I'll put the blue tape down and sand, otherwise it'll scuff up this chest. Alright, I finally got both sides on and got it wrapped down and super glued along the edge. You super glue the edge if you hold it with a little bit of blue tape, and then use the kicker to set it, and that's how I did all along here. I'm going to show you, this is what I'm doing with the wingtips for now. They look like that. Kick the servo out at a couple of degrees, maybe 3 degrees or 5. They're kicked out slightly so that it points. And I got my servos in the mail, HS5645 MG. They're the Digital Ultra Torque. That servo died on me using the standard servo, and I do not want that to happen to me again. Something else fails, that's fine, but I do not want another. It was a Futaba standard size servo. It was an older servo. I probably shouldn't have used it. I run a regulator, a voltage regulator. This one happens to be a 5 amp from Turnigy. They're affordable, and I put it between my receiver, and I have a little 11 volt battery here that will kick it down to 6 volts. So, and I'm running a Futaba 7C, and show you a little bit about the servo. Right now, this is the back of the plane, the front of the plane, and I'm going to pull up elevator like this. Up elevator, you want them coming toward you because they're going to be pushing the push rods. So this is up, and that's right, and that's left. Because when it pulls toward you, it's going to push the elevator up, or the L1. So up, down, right, left, and there it is. There's my, that's my radio setup, and I have it set on L1s. And if you need the exact settings, I can give them to you, but you probably run a different radio than me. But that's my, and I'm running the plane has a lot of carbon fiber, so this receiver works with the 7C, the fast FASST works really good with a little extra carbon fiber, works good. And a Futaba radio isn't as voltage sensitive as, say, a Spectrum, and generally it seems. But I do run an NX8 over here, but I do run 3 receivers. And I also definitely run a voltage regulator on that one too, because you cannot have the voltage sag on this, especially on a Spectrum system. So that just gives me a little more insurance. I don't care about the extra ounce of weight. I just want power to my servos. You know, if my ESC fails, you know, I can still fly it down. Kind of roughed it up, and I hot glued those in all nice and tight on both sides. You see the leading edge, I glued that up with super glue. I just put this up with hot glue, but so that's all nice and up and tight. And now I'm going to be installing the servos before we skin this, because that way I can see the control rods where they're going to go on all the axes. The servos, this skin, the elevators, the elevons, you know, and then the control rods. not really about the movement, but you do want, my two servos that I do have is, they're Elevons that are HS high-tech 564 MG. Top, it's got 140% each way, so it's like, seems like it's got extra. So you can account for that if you've got a shorter throw than I do, but nonetheless, I'm going to go with 2 1/4. I cut these off at 2 and wouldn't have had to cut those off, but I cut those at 2.4 inches from the center to the top, and then but there is this cool little. As soon as I did that, I found out Hi-Tech does have a long. And I adapted these little carbon fiber ones like I've done for my RC Superheroes, so I'm used to doing that. It's good for me, but I wouldn't have had to do that because Hi-Tech does have a nylon long arm here. Right. So now that I've got my servo arm on there, or you can use the HS, and I'm going to do the hole at 2.25 up from the center, and then I've mounted 2 screws of this. I've got these are part of my motor mount system. I'll explain it as I go, but for now I hold it up in there, drilled 2 holes, I put the 2 holes screwed in there. Now I drilled these 2 holes after these 2 screws are in, then I'm going to drop those 2 screws in. Pad I'm kneeling on. I'm going to take one of these apart. This is the little locking piece that sits. Now I'm going to take some of this glue and I'm going to not put it on the servo, but put it on that little pad right there and right there. The reason for this is the little locking thing that's going to hold this together. So then I'm going to slide this in. I have it already marked with my pin where it goes. Okay, so that's slid together. Now I'm going to take a little bit of glue, put it on the back side of this, in that little crease. This one's put together. That's the left one. And then slide this apart. You can see what it looks like. I've got a slot there. I'm going to take some glue, put it on here in the middle, put it on the back pad, and I'm going to take this my locking piece, slide it in there. Section holds it together. The left one and the right one, and there's a central slot in the plane, and these things slide together like this. They slide together, and that gap is the width of the center fin of the plane. And so when we go to put them in the plane, so here they are when these are glued and dried in 5 minutes, because it's 5 minutes epoxy. You slip that in the slot and hook it, slip this in the slot and hook it under it. I play this one first and then this one, then slide them together. And then last of all, I'll probably put a couple little screws here and here in the middle, and that'll lock the servos on to that central fin. And these arms here, I'm going to have them pre-drilled with about 10 little holes so I can adjust my linkage up and down. And the arms always go up. I just flipped them up to make sure I had all my pieces locked in just right. And here I am with the wingsuit. I'm putting the servos in, going in. So I slip this one in the slot, and I slip this one in the slot. And you can see how the piece from this side overlaps this side. I drilled a little hole and put a screw in there. And the same thing here, I kind of pulled the wire out of the way. And on this one underlaps that one, so I just drilled a little hole and drove a screw in there to just tape these elevons in place. And I trimmed them just a little bit to fit in here. Control rod. Okay, so the control horn actually won't be on the top. The control horn is going to be on the bottom. That's why it's fine. But at least I can see where I want the control horn, but it's going to be hanging down. Okay, and I'm going to center that up on the servo and mark my spot, and then I'll put in some supports. All right, so I taped the elevators in place and trimmed them to fit so they have room to move. And as you can see, I laid it up from the center of the servo to here, and I marked the direction of, because this control horn isn't going to be straight. It's going to be kind of cocky-wonk in to have a straight thrust. I could have angled the servos a little bit, but I didn't. I think it'll be all right. So I marked out from the middle of where the control horn would be, that I determined from the central part of the control rod, so it's centered in these holes. It came out here. That's where the control horn goes, where that slot is on the bottom. So I groove this, and I'm going to lay in some rods and either epoxy or. And they sit like this, where the bigger part's on the outside and the skinnier part's on the inside. And this is the front. I've already, this is actually the top side. I'm going to put that in there. I don't know how well clamps. This side glues onto this piece, and they clamp onto here, and it makes this control horn. And then it's on the underside, and see how it's forward of the pivot point? That way, because we're going to use a lot of up elevator here on this one, and some down, but it's going to give, on the upstroke, it's going to give it more power. And this vertical, I'm going to set it aside and do the other one. So here's the other one. I'm going to put in the little piece first from the top. Then I'm going to take the main piece, stick it in that little slot that I made. How to flip it upside down. So this is the right one with the fin, with the control horn underneath it. The right one. You can see how I supported it with carbon fiber. I grooved it out first, and then here's a left one with the bigger part to the left. Alright, I'll show you what I'm doing here. So I need to mount these the elevons in the back, and then to do that I need to mount a little bit of skin back here on the top side. So I've got 27.5 by 12, and this is about 12 by 11, and then as you see I've got a joining strip. I'm gonna put these on with this sticking out about an inch at the top, because I'll put another joining tab under that, just like I did here. But after I mount this piece, then I'm gonna put on my elevons. I butt jointed them and they're up at the top here, because and there's a gap that goes between here so that it can fit. So you've got your piece sitting on here, but before I glue it down, and I also notched for where because I want this sitting flat. Excuse me. Excuse me. So then something else I did before I glue this down with the beacon foam tack. Glue one side, and then you set it on there, just right where you need it, and push it down, and then you remove it and rub it to where it's tacky. And if you have to add more glue, like if it didn't get a complete thing, then add more glue and then kind of rub it to where they're both kind of barely tacky, and then you can put it back on there, and then it'll almost instantly be on there. So that's the reason why we're doing this, because we need